Dragon Age the Veilguard has certainly seen its fair share of controversy over the last several months. From the moment it was announced, the trailer got absolutely and totally destroyed, with so many people crying, this clearly is not the same BioWare that gave us so many games and IPs and franchises that we loved over a decade ago. And it's obvious that it is not. And it's also obvious that there's a pretty big split about how the critics feel about this game versus how the gamers feel about this game. You can see 3.8 user score on Metacritic as we speak right now, but there's no doubt that the media not very happy that gamers aren't falling in line and are actually allowed to voice their opinions. You have here Nathan Grayson. Man, that name brings up memories, doesn't it, from a decade ago. The Dragon Age review controversy shows how much YouTube and Twitter have poisoned video game discourse. You know, I'm sure for critics, they do feel like it's poisoned because there's actually other voices out there. There's other people that can give their opinions on these games instead of the access media, and their voices can be heard as well. That is a problem for people like this. I saw Legacy Kill out here saying this, true hypocrites. Hogwarts Legacy showed that and many other examples. It's why gaming sites are now dying and are not taken seriously at all. You shunned very tame, non-progressive voices years ago, and deal with the consequences now. You reap what you sow. And the reaction to Dragon Age in general has been a little bit indicative of that. Now, Dragon Age the Veilguard, it's launched right now. It's first weekend. As we speak, let's see what it's sitting at. 86,000 players, and that is off its peak of probably around 89 or so. I fully expected this game to have over 100,000 concurrent players at launch just because of how big of an IP Dragon Age is. It is massive. BioWare has admitted it's their biggest franchise. And maybe in a vacuum, in isolation, when you have this number and it's kind of struggling to stay in the top 20 charts on Steam, you can see how people would be like, wow, that's a big launch, 80,000 concurrent players. When you factor in that Baldur's Gate 3, an adventure RPG, has over 100,000 players playing right now, over a year after its release. That should kind of put in perspective where Dragon Age is right now. That peak was nearly 1 million, by the way. Even something like Starfield, which obviously considered to be a little bit of a disappointment by some Starfield, its peak was 330,000 players. But with all that in isolation, you have headlines like this. Dragon Age the Veilguard launch beats Jedi Survivor to make it EA's biggest ever single-player game on Steam. You know, there's a few things that maybe you should take into consideration. Razorfist put it right. You could mention that it's their first proper Steam launch since the Origin experiment imploded. Because remember, all EA games launched not on Steam until a few years ago. It was on EA Origin, their own platform, making it the first modern BioWare game to be released concurrently on Steam and not held as exclusive somewhere else. You could if you were honest. You could if you weren't IGN. And this is really the battle that's going on right now. You have a lot of people that are ripping this thing to pieces in a big way for the writing, the dialogue, the character interactions. That's what this is being ripped apart. And the reason that's happening is because when BioWare was BioWare 20 years ago, when we saw some things like Knights of the Old Republic, like the Mass Effect games, things like this, it was because of the story and because of the characters and the interactions that you were allowed to have. Now, you have interactions like this. And I don't know who to credit for putting the Seinfeld laugh track over this entire thing, but this is an example. This is not your character's choices and how you can play the game. This is put into the game intentionally, this entire non-binary companion acceptance quest. And it's not really a quest, it's just part of the fucking game, right? Listen to this.
Here, vegetables.
Thank you.
So, I'm non-binary.
What does that mean?
It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
This is because I have criticized your dress or your manners.
It isn't.
Under the Q, the term for one whose gender does not match the one given to them at birth was a cunithlock. Perhaps you are like that.
Why do you have to keep picking at it? Why can't you just be happy for me?
Evatosh, chakra to ebra.
Who I am? Even if I don't feel like I fit, even if I feel wrong?
No, you misunderstood.
And this is what we're talking about. This is not, hey, based on your character's choices, you can have an experience about no, this is baked into the fucking game. This entire campaign is all about being non-binary. People misgender them, and then everyone gets lectured about why it's not okay to misgender and how you need to apologize and not make it about yourself with the apology. The entire thing, for most normal people going through this, they find it incredibly fucking cringe. They find it incredibly fucking cringe. And gamers are speaking out about it. The mainstream media does not like that. They don't like the fact that gamers have more of a voice now than they ever had. They don't like the fact that people on Twitter or people on YouTube, they can review it. They can put out their thoughts. They can put out these clips. They just want it limited to the access media. And this Dragon Age controversy, it's not going anywhere. We've heard rumors of very, very big budget for this game. Certainly upwards of $200 million, maybe even much, much more than that. It's been in development a long time. And the idea that, opening weekend, you have about 80,000 people playing it, that probably equates, based on some estimates, that probably equates to around 500,000 copies sold on Steam. Now, it's on other platforms, certainly. Who knows how many people might be using other consoles and stuff to play the game. But when you're looking at Steam specifically, about 500,000. This game is something that needs to sell millions and millions and millions of copies just to break even, certainly with an over $200 million budget. And time will tell, I suppose, but for its opening weekend to peak at under 100,000 concurrent, when you look at some of these other comparables, certainly not a Concord level flop or failure or anything like that, but a massive disappointment for a franchise as big as Dragon Age is for BioWare. And now you've got the media and gamers fighting once again. I guess it's the same old story.